us onto your tracker styled knife. This is your large model, and I've finished field testing this, and I think this is great. You can see the way it fills my hands, totally different to all the other knives. It's obviously designed to fit my hand. I really like that about it, and the chopping capability this knife's got, and I think a lot of that's down to the design where you've put in the canted handle. Definitely assists it compared to all the other knives here. The only one that would out-chop it, I would say, is this here, but it's down to pure physics.
It's a bit bigger.
Yeah, so, and the Tanto design really excelled when it came to stabbing into material, puncture material, digging out tree stumps and stuff like that to get to fatwood. Really liked it, and one of the things I was really surprised how good it worked was your wire bender. I'd done a lot with that, and it was like, oh, found a new toy. I was just everything, pot hook hangers, I actually made a D swivel for my sheaths. I've done loads of stuff with it, and I know that your exposed tang works fantastic. If that had to come for scraping like hide and getting sinew off of the inside the hide, stuff like that, shaping bowls, the edge is super sharp, but not to the point when you're using it, it cuts you. I know the friction-free socket works great as well. I don't know, you've had to hit the park with this one with me. It's kind of got everything. When I first came here, I'd just been using this knife here, and I just felt, no, it's far too light and things are being changed. You've made 3 models of this, and each one done exactly what I thought was missing in David Crawford's knives. For me personally, his knife works great, and if you're into a small lightweight knife, well, that's fine, but for what I do, I prefer something heavy, and this is a machine. Really is. I'm really, really pleased with how this performed. So what's your thoughts about making it and how it's performed and what you've seen through the tests?
Well, when I first made this, the draw knife section, went out of my head again, the draw knife section was actually curved more like the Shirley there. But as I said earlier, that spur sticking up here I found interfered with the use of the actual draw knife, so I modified it, took it out, and I think it performed better at that point. But my initial concept with this was that my thoughts on now, I'd never handled this. I'd never handled a tracker at this point. This has got a funny bit. This has got a good weight to it. When I say a funny bit of weight, this has got a good weight to it. It actually feels heavier than this. But my grind is much higher on this, so I've taken a lot of weight out of the blade. But my thoughts on it were that a tracker didn't have enough real estate in the actual blade portion of the knife.
That's my finding as well.
And so for actual chopping tasks, I felt it was inefficient for that. Even though it was sort of like designed as an all-round and a chopper, it wasn't efficient because of the length of that. And that's why I made my versions of this with a much longer forward section. The Tanto Tip was again designed as a hard use knife. I wanted something that was very, very strong in the tip, and so the Tanto Tip, it also gives you a secondary point there for various tasks. The Canted Handle, again to increase your chopping capability due to the presentation of the blade, I wanted it canted, unlike the rest of the knives here, they're all very straight. And I just felt they presented on pretty much on the hook, which to me wasn't optimum because the hook needs to be sharp. It's designed, that bit's designed for doing your feathers, and if you're constantly whacking that into end grain or into timber that's maybe dirty and grotty or whatever, then you're going to take the edge right off this bit that needs to be sharp for doing that. That bit there, if you're chopping with it, it can afford to be maybe less sharp than the rest of the knife, but if you're actually going to damage this part through your chopping, wasn't.
I think by the looks of things, David Crawford's knives kind of started to address that.
Aye.
I feel, but I've not had a chance to get around to using this shit, and there will be a review coming soon. But I think the length that he's increased it makes it look much more capable of different tasks, especially like a branch coming out horizontal.
Yep.
Allows you to chop more efficient without needing to cant your hand
Yes.
to catch it. So I definitely feel Davy's addressed that with this knife.
Absolutely. So that those were the reasons behind it, and obviously the additional sort of functionality, if you like, with the exposed tang and the friction-free so the friction-free socket at the back end to allow you to use that. So that was the whole concept behind it, and this is 6mm, and it's swedged to allow for the splitting along with the Shirley, for the piercing of the tip.
And it definitely outperforms all the other knives in that task with the swedge. Definitely does.
Okay.
Between the swedge and the Tanto, much better performance when it comes to split.
So, with the here, I'm just looking at that. The grind line is up to there, so it's about double the height of all the rest of the knives.
Yeah.
So that was the thought behind it.
Another thing that surprised me with that was the Mali, how tough it is, but at the same time how comfortable and how shock absorbing. I had used it previously with your axe, but didn't have enough playtime with it, but definitely that. And one of the videos I've done on the channel, you see me chop through a tree, and it performed fantastic. So that was definitely a thumbs up for the Mali. I really like it. And I think also if you have any kind of high spots, so you can just take a bit of sandpaper and adjust it to fit your hand perfect. So that was another advantage I found with that.
I mean, I do the best to try and make the handles fit to each customer, but
You
you're
know
not
what it's
necessarily
like.
getting it right every
It's
single
perfect in
time.
the workshop. You go up the road, as soon as you're out, you start doing things, and there's a wee bit, and it's just a wee quick rub, and that's it.
That's it.
So yeah. So that brings us on to the next one then, and is the Bat River. I've never really been a great fan of the handles of Bat Rivers, and that's why I've kind of stayed away from them. My friend Andy, he's been at the grinding at Mike Stewart's, and he's a massive fan of the Bat River stuff. I do like the A2 that this is made of, but what I see in this knife here, which I don't really fancy too much, is the draw section's got a hollow grind to it. I know the A2 is tough, and you can see they've increased the size here of the chopping section, Ulu section, which I think is a bit better, and the knife's got a good length to it. It's got various grips, but some of the grinds are off in this, and some of the contours just going to produce hot spots. I feel, even though it is smooth, these ridges here in the handle, I'm finding here at the front index, will definitely affect you. But it's one tough knife, and the one thing I do like about this is the thickness of this. I feel this is about the right size, maybe another inch in length, but I do like this knife, and they too does produce a fantastic edge, and the grinds are a bit higher on this, but for a custom knife and the price we're paying for it, not too happy. So what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, as I say, trackers I'd had very little experience of, but when I produced this, there was somebody interested in owning one of those, and we did a trade for one of my trackers versus this.
Right.
And I was up for it because I was intrigued to see a real tracker, if you like.
Okay.
And this is supposed to be the closest thing to the Beck without actually having to wait extraordinary lengths of time to get it. And so I traded it for this. When it arrived, I was actually surprised it was quite long, as in the blade, but nicely long. I like the overall aesthetic of it. So my initial impressions on taking it out were like, yeah, I quite like that. However, on closer inspection, there's a lot of things about this that they don't work for me.
Right.
I find the handle is uncomfortable,
Okay.
and there's numerous points to that. Like the back end here, it's like a really sharp corner, and when you grip it, it digs in. That would need to be dressed out. Now, I could address this,
Okay.
but I don't think I'm going to keep this knife,
Right.
and so I'm leaving it
Is
original.
that due to the discomfort it's causing
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
The handle?
I'm not going to keep this because I feel that I would have to modify this heavily to make it fit for me, for the way I want to work with it, and by doing so it's no longer an original knife, and so therefore other people might not be interested in it. If I modify it to suit me, it might not suit somebody else, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it as is, but that means I'm not going to use it really.
I know if Mike Stewart produces these kind of smooth type handles to stop as many hot spots as possible, and that's actually one of the things I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
I've had maybe about 10 Bat River knives now, and I don't know, they're just too smooth. That's one of the things I don't like. I feel they need a bit more texture, and because I wear gloves all the time, so with the smooth it twists in your hand.
Aye.
You know, I find that, so I don't know. That's my dislike with them, but as functioning knives, they do work, and I really like his convexes that he does.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
very easy to sharpen.
The grind, the height on there is decent, but well. So the back of the handle being sharp, didn't like that. The front of the handle being sharp, didn't like that.
Right.
And this ridge in here, it sticks in my hand. When I'm gripping it here, choking right up, I feel it's almost want to splay or separate my index and middle finger. It's like pushing in there.
Right.
So I don't like, and I feel that's exacerbated by the fact that the handles are smooth, and so you've got to grip it harder to hold it, because if it's wet or whatever, it wants to slip around in your hand.
Right.
So you're forced to grip it tight, which means that then digs in.
Okay.
So that's not helping. So the grind on the handle, again here I feel it's hollow, and my fingers are almost touching up the top and up the back here, but missing this part. So there's various aspects of the handle that don't work for me. It might work for other people, maybe others don't notice it, but it doesn't work for me. The other thing that I was really disappointed at was the grinds. And I've joined a tracker group in America on Facebook,
Right.
and I posted pictures of this up, and I commented on the fact that the grinds were off. Now the tip isn't ground central; it's off to the left here, and it's off by, I think it's about 1.5 mil.
Right,
Which
that's a lot.
now in a 6 mil knife, that's a quarter of the blade.
Yeah.
You know, that's well off. And the plunge lines here at the ricasso, I measured that as well. It's about 1.5 mil off in height on each side.
Right.
It's actually central, but it's off height wise. And given the price of this knife, I think that's unacceptable. This knife coming in the UK here, at least the last time I looked at it, was 460 quid
Is it?
for that knife coming in a leather sheath.
Right.
And for grinds to be off on what is effectively very close to 500, it could be that now with import and Brexit and that, it could be 500 quid, £500 knife to get grinds like that. And the thing is, it's not my first experience of that. I've got another Bart River in there that's to go back to somebody else, and it's 5mm thick, and the tip is ground off, so it's 1.6 mil from one side, which means it's 3.5 mil and 1.6 off.
Right.
And the plunge lines, they're actually heavily ground on one side, almost straight on the other, and the depth, as in the height, if you like, that way, is off as well. So the grind, it seems to happen a lot. And on the tracker forum, if you like, they commented to Mike on that and said, you know, why is that? What's happening? You know, now they produce a lot of knives, and given the amount they produce, there are going to be some that are not right. But I'd be very interested to see the percentage of knives that come out that are not right, because his comment was basically, well, that proves it's handmade. That's a handmade sign of it being handmade, that the grinds are off. And
Yeah, they are individually hand ground.
they are, but I make knives, and that's not. That's central, and the tip's central.
Yeah.
And you know, makers around the UK, you know, all the custom makers, their grinds are central as well. It's not difficult to do unless you're just pumping it out and looking for the money, and that to me isn't right. So they need to address that really.
Yeah.
However, those are the bits I don't like about it.
Right.
Other than the hollow grind, I don't see the point in a hollow grind.
I think the original WSK knife had a hollow grind, and I think that also got changed as time moved on as well. To me, it just feels like it would be too fragile.
Yeah, your experience with the Schrade, that was when I first spoke to you. You had a Schrade that was hollow grind, and it blew a massive chunk out when you were chopping through the branches on the pine trees. At the hard part when it joins a trunk, it just shore it out. And
An inch.
that's what we're worried about with this. Now, this steel might be tougher, the heat treat could be better, and that'll compensate to a degree, but to me, hollow grinds are for razors and stuff like that. I don't like them on a knife, especially one that's designed, or the remit was, take it in the woods and smash it about and it's going to last forever. To me, a hollow grind is compromising that durability.
Yeah, I would think so as well.
So, flat ground to a secondary or convex edge, I think would be, a very good option, and fully convex ground would be the best option, again, in my opinion.
Right.
So, but other than that, I like the
Is
size.
that just because it's giving it more meat behind the edge, you think?
Aye, personally I think convex knives are easier to sharpen all round. They've got a much more durable edge geometry. They can slice well, they can split well. They're just a better all round edge geometry for me, and which is why all my knives are convex ground. Yeah, but this knife, I like the size of it. The spine isn't sharp, but then on the tracker it isn't sharp either. Did you find these were sharp on the Brocs?
Could strike the fire steels, no problem.
Right, because
Like that, and I could get a fair bit of bark off with them, but I feel they could actually be sharper.
right.
But I don't know if it's a case if they do become sharper that they lose the edge quicker. I'm not too sure how that would go.
Right. Well, this here, I tried kind of striking a fire steel with this, and all it did was rub up and down it and did absolutely diddly squat. It did nothing. So there's and again, had I been keeping this, I would have ground that and made it sharp to allow for that. But it isn't. And as I say, for me, there's too many issues with it. For me personally, that I don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
I will actually make another tracker style, and it's going to be more like a traditional tracker, if you like, because I'm intrigued by that now. But I'm gonna put the canted handle on and do various other things to try and increase the capability of it, if you like. But
Be interesting to see.
yeah, it'll be more like this style of knife.
Yeah.
And again, this is quite a deep hook.
Yeah. I find the quarter rounds all work in their own way, but they all produce different types of feather.
Do you have a preference? I mean, you've used these an awful lot more than I have.
Yeah.
My hook is very deep.
Yeah.
It produces different feathers. It still produces feathers, good feathers. But Shirley, you said, was best, and I actually really like the way that the tops worked, producing feathers.
As I say, Shirley was the best, and then I was surprised at how good the tops T1 done. Really good. Produce a different type of feather, and your knife, I've got a video on it doing some feathers on it, produces great feathers as well. But I just feel with your knife as well, it would get deeper in if it came to getting underneath the hide and being able to draw on it. But I don't know, I think you just alter the knife to make it work.
Alter the way you handle it.
Yeah, I think that's right across the board with them all. I feel that is the case.
So, but to put you on the spot then, I mean, you've had a bit of a play with that,
Yeah.
but which hook do you prefer? We'll discount the Shirley, because that's
Right,
just a
that's
smaller knife.
right.
Of these larger knives,
I don't think I've had enough time with the tops in a half a years. But I'm going to go on a limb here and I'm going to say the tops, even though I can reduce really good on your knife.
right?
And I feel also because this could be a lot sharper, this could maybe produce better feathers again, or produce them much easier. Whereas your knife's super sharp and it's like that.
How did you get on with the Brock? Because that's got a similar hook to this, but it's a thinner stock and it's
The thing with the Brock knives or the small model is it's dexterous in the hand. And you can pinch up in the blade, and you can do with short sticks. So to me this is a bushcrafting knife.
So it
I
doesn't.
know it's a tracker steel blade, but no, it's not a tracker knife to me. It's a bushcrafting knife, so I know it can produce the feathers and it looks like it, but if I was going on a course, I wouldn't take that just solely because I feel it's too fragile, it's too light.
For the way you work with a knife.
And definitely the way I work, and the types of wood I work on as well. Really notorious for the knots. A lot of beech, oak, hawthorn seems to be another one that seems to destroy the knives for me in the area I'm in. But a very capable knife this, and it did produce feathers. You just look online, but I felt
So
I needed more practice with the David Crawford knife.
So more of a bushcrafting knife than a survival knife, you would
Yeah,
say.
definitely. Which brings me to the last one, and this was some ideas I had years ago, and this was Jason Degnan made me this. He was just starting out making knives, so I come up with all these crazy ideas and he put it together, and this is a monster, it's a brute. I knew I needed something large, I wanted something like machete style in size, but the tracker and bolo. So what I'd done was copied the size of the bolo of the Ontario SP53, because it massive chopping capability, so that's why that got put at the front. The swedge here is for the Fall Niven A1, because it works really good, so that's why that got put there. The anvil was rounded so it could absorb the shot, and it gave me an area to hit the pin battening, and it gave direct force
Over the belly,
right through the belly of this large chopping area. And this draw section was just to give me something to carve, and then I've got this very large kind of, I mean, what you call it, choil finger notch, and I can get two fingers in it, and what it done was actually counterbalance the knife. So it gave me a bit of weight out the back, so it allowed the knife to basically half its weight, and I could carve, and it worked really good. I actually had someone off the tracker site asking, why would you have a knife with the cutting edge so far away from the handle? It isn't.
No.
Because you go like that, and I'm up here, and I can fit my fingers in here, and it worked brilliant.
Nice.
So it counterbalanced itself, and that's how that works. This could be at a better shape, but I really did like this knife. And at the time, you've altered this for me. It had a Scandi edge on it, and that's all that you could do at the time. Sharp 90-degree spine, and a bail hook there for taking off the fire. And this is a monster. 01 tool steel, and I really like a lot of things about this. This is kind of tracker-ish style to me, and a lot of the capabilities that a tracker should have. Maybe a bit long, maybe could take about 2 inches off of this and alter the handle slightly, but it'd be good.
Where would you take the 2 inches off? Would you shorten the draw knife section and that by a little bit each, or what would you do?
I would probably take it off the front, actually, because it's designed to go from my elbow to my fingertip, and I just feel it was just slightly, because of the weight at the front, just a wee bit unmanageable.
Okay.
And I felt, well, if I could maybe take that, maybe shorten a bit at the front and shorten a bit slightly at the draw section, and I think we're on the roads to it, and get the quarter round sorted out. But this is more, I feel this length's good. So, what do you think of this one?
Well, I've not used this one. I just say I've kind of modified the grind for you. Sort the spine out a bit after years of getting battered by you, but I mean, it's a hefty knife. It's a hefty knife. And this idea here, that's the same sort of concept as I've got on my Contender.
Aye, that's right. Yeah.
And the Contender, I mean, it can feather stick, it can chop, it's a brute of a knife as well.
Yeah.
So I get that, I understand that, like that. And you know, the different hand positions up and down to enable you to alter your chopping capability.
Another thing is as well, when you've got that with your bare hands, it doesn't feel right, but when you put gloves on,
Okay.
it fills that space better.
Right. I mean, I don't I don't use gloves, but that's not uncomfortable. I've read the point out maybe a little bit, but it's not bad, you know. And the sniper tape on it, and that kind of bits and pieces. I mean, this would chop for fun, you know. And 01, I like 01, you know. You get a decent heat streak on 01 and it will really perform for you. So yeah, I mean, lots of fancy steels out there, but sometimes simple's better, you know, just easier to maintain and stuff like that, or sharpen. So yeah, I mean, this is a brutal thing.
That's my original tracker.
Yeah, I mean, you're able to kind of choke up by coming up into that choil area, which lets you access that. So an interesting design on it, and you can definitely see it.
I mean, that would take your head off if it was for combat.
Aye, you know, take your fingers off if you got it wrong. But yeah, so but yeah, interesting design. I mean, I can see why you've put all the features in there, and I quite like it.
Well, it's just because they worked on the other knife, so why don't put them all into one knife, you know?
Aye.
You know, and that's kind of was my fight, so that's how that got it. So that's us then.
That's it.
Well, thanks very much, Kev, for taking time out today and going through the pros and cons of each knife. And I'll definitely be looking forward to your tracker design, and hopefully at some point down the line I'll be out and I'll get to field test it and see how that goes, and maybe we'll put a bit of features from each one into yours and come up with the tracker whacker.
The tracker whacker.
To whack them all.
Yeah. So
okay.
Thanks very much for having me on the channel.
Right, thank you.
Cheers.
Right, cheers.